Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show and this very special segment. Here, let me do this for you. I'm really excited about doing this segment because I do a lot of work behind the scenes with entrepreneurs who are mission driven, heart centered, amazing human beings. And I thought it would be really great for you, dear listener, dear viewer, to actually see how some of this stuff is done. And then you can either shamelessly copy what you're seeing, or you can feel free to stop by and ask us for some more help in a more detailed way with details about that, of course, in the show notes. But really, my biggest goal here is to help the person who has raised their hand for this segment. And today, I'm super excited to introduce you to Sean Mabry. Sean is an incredible writer. He is an experienced copywriter, ghostwriter, and author, a creative genius, one might say. And he's amazing at extracting your story from your history, helping you tell the story that really needs to be told so that you can have a lasting legacy and impact in your books. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Amanda. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here. And you were here before, so I'll make sure that I link in the show notes our last interview, just so if the listener wants to get to know you even better, they can do that. But just in case they don't want to be jumping around, do you mind giving us a little recap about what it is that you do for people and what gets you so excited about doing it?
Yeah, so in particular, I work with thought leaders and experts who know that it's time to put out a book, and not just because they're trying to check a box on a list that says you should have a book, but because they recognize there's a piece of their message that doesn't fit in any of their existing content. It doesn't quite fit on stage, doesn't quite fit on a podcast or in their existing content on LinkedIn or wherever else. And they know there's something else that needs to be captured in a book. And part of what I do for them, aside from writing the book or helping them write with the actual writing, is I'm obsessed with two things: mapping the story and the writing process. Because 99% of what stops a book from actually getting finished and published, which is a lot of books that wind up in that limbo, book limbo as I call it, is it's always either a process problem or something that got missed in the mapping. So that's the first thing I do with everyone is I get very clear on the map and then I hold them to the process as we go.
It's really, really cool. And, I read a stat recently that something like 83% of Americans would like to write a book before they die. Like, it's a big deal to get your story out, and especially if you're writing for legacy. Because, like you said, there's a lot of reasons one might write a book. It could be entertainment, could be creative expression, could be business purposes. And I understand from working with you that legacy is pretty important. Like, what do you think has inspired you to focus on those books as opposed to any of the others that you might?
The biggest thing for me in terms of why legacy is, for one thing, that's the book I'm writing right now. Like I'm writing a book that's about the legacy of my mom, and she passed away under very difficult circumstances. And it's a very complicated story. But if anything, the complication is part of why I want to tell it. Is that for one thing, it's important for me to both enshrine what was great about her and also be honest about what those years were like, so that anyone else who's going through something similar has, I always call it like a great story in any form, but especially in memoir, is like a mirror at an angle. It's not exactly the same thing that you went through, but it's close enough that allows you to see it from a new perspective. And really, that's what I do in the writing process too, is that whether I'm ghostwriting for you or whether I'm coaching you through the process, I am acting as the mirror at an angle so that you can get the story onto the page. And the reason why that is so important to me is goes all the way back to one of the things I learned from my mentor, Art Holcomb, which is that the origin of all storytelling goes back to the elders of the village sitting around the campfire and teaching the young what life will be like. And that is something that I think is so essential and so human. And like to the point where it's part of what makes us human in the first place. And it is also directly under threat right now because of AI and the way it's being pushed on us and the way it's being framed. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't be using AI at all, as we're going to get into later, but the way that it's being presented and the way it's being woven into our culture, I see as a direct attack on that process, because they're effectively saying you can train a robot to make words for you and the words will essentially manipulate the market to create whatever outcome you want. I see that as a fundamental violation of our human duty, and I'm here to correct it.
So good. So like and it makes a lot of sense that you'd be focused on memoir and legacy because those are not replicatable, are they? You can't be artificial about that. Yeah, I love it. So Sean, super excited to do something for you today. What's the main business focus you have right now? Like what's the thing that if we fix that, it's going to have a positive impact on your business?
So the biggest thing for me has been figuring out what is a low ticket membership I can set up for my business where I was telling someone earlier today, actually, like, I see this as almost like a warming pad. Like, yes, I like, if you're ready to pull the trigger on the book, great, let's do it. I can take off running. I know not everyone's ready for that at any given time, but they want to start moving in that direction. They want to do something to start get the book juices flowing. And they like a lot of what I've sold so far is very outcome and timeline focused, right? Like, we're going to do this in X amount of time. And I'm very good at doing that. But if somebody is still in that exploratory space, like some people might want to spend a month or two there, some people might want to spend longer. I'm happy to have, but I need a place for them. Right.
I
And
love
I
that. I
need
love that.
a reliable process for filling that group as I go.
Yeah. Okay. So reliable process for filling the group, being able to actually host the membership. That's fantastic. So, what has been the greatest obstacle so far to just automatically having this membership up and cooking?
So it's funny because once I am in the room with people, whether it's a one-on-one chat like this, a public podcast, a group networking call, whatever, I'm great. I'm great at that part. I'm not going to feign humility there. I am. The problem is getting onto those things in a systematic way because I'm kind of doing it through like habit and instinct and mood, to be honest. That is not stable. It's not giving me the stability I want. So having some form of automation and not like, I'm very curious to see like where you're gonna go with this. It's not that I want a bot to go out and like pretend to be me and like gather up all the business for me. But what I do want is a system that holds me accountable and can kind of remind me of what I need to do when, because if I leave that up to chance, right? Like I certain things will be done, certain things won't be, right? It's a little bit chaotic.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you leave things to your mood, that is a very chaotic way to grow a business. And especially when you're a really creative person, it's really important to be able to flex and to be able to move with mood. That's true. And if your business is a source of income, but also your customers are going to be looking for a level of consistency and responsiveness from you. So when you have a great system that supports you regardless of your mood, then that can be a huge lift for your business. Okay. So we've got a few things to tease apart here today, and I'm really excited to do it with you. As you know, I really love systems. Systems, I would say, have helped me the same way, where if I've ever felt challenged in my mood, or if I was in a season, shall we say, that was really challenging. It was systems that saved my butt. I've used systems to help me to build 7 memberships. So I think I can give you some good insights. 2 of those were abysmal failures. Let's see, 2 were abysmal failures. 1 is kicking butt, and that's the Clear Avenue Inner Circle, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then the other ones were good learning growth. Like they were pretty successful, and then I definitely decoded and unlocked a few things. So through that experience. So I'm happy to pass that on here live with you. And we also have your Clairvenue OS, which is the actual technology that I use for managing all of my relationships. So all of my business relationships, I should say, which is a lot of my relationships in number are business related, but we can start kind of unpacking a couple of ideas for you today. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. We're going to get started right after this very quick message. Welcome to one of my first ads for Claire Venue. Yep. It took me about 3.5 years to do my very first ad in my first company. So I figure if I waited 3 months for this company, I'm already doing a lot faster. But yeah, so why do an ad? Well, because we show you how to use systems. And all an ad, my friend, is a system for getting the word out. And if you're really curious about how you could use systems more effectively in your business, then we should get to know each other better. And you should come check out the Inner Circle, where we marry the coaching and the wisdom and the motivational stuff with like actual brass tacks of systems to help you acquire clients and help you to not go crazy when you are a team of one or a few. All right, my friend, we'll get back to the episode. We'll see you soon. I love that. Okay, so shameless plug. Sean is a member of the Inner Circle, and we'll pick his brain about all of that much later. But first, let me do something for you. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and share your Clairvenue OS platform. So does this look familiar to you, Sean?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So there's a couple of different features that I think are going to really, really help. And before we went live, I made sure that I pushed something to your account to just speed this up. But the main thing that I'd love to see you use your system for is the task tracking and management using opportunities. So I'm just going to click here on the opportunities link. And from your description, there's actually a few different kinds of pipelines that you've got. So you've got your sales pipeline, looks like the one that you built for you, right? You've got these two that I added. So I'll just show you really quick. The Clairvenue sales pipeline is the standard pipeline that I recommend. A pipeline is simply an organization structure for all of your relationships. And what gets really hairy and crazy and makes it hard as a solopreneur is that all relationships basically move through this similar progression, but not all of them are going to make it to the end, and not all of them are going to move at the same speed. So I call this relational velocity. I don't know if that's even really a thing, but that's how I think of it. Some people, our relational velocity is like really hot. So think of this as like love at first sight, person you meet at a networking group, and they're like, wow, I want you to be my ghostwriter, and you're like getting married so fast, your head's spinning, you rush to Vegas. It's like a whole thing. Most people go a lot slower than that because you've met them at the perfect time. It's just that they're not necessarily ready to think about purchasing just yet. And this is what we're going to address with the membership community as well, as like some people have to make several commitments before they're ready for that bigger commitment. And that's more typical. There's also going to be a lot of people who it's like there's a little bit of interest early in the relationship and then it kind of fizzles. And so to help you to progress these, first of all, we need to understand the stages. So the first stage we have is new leads. So this is somebody that we've identified as like, oh, possibly, maybe we could do something together. Contacted is somebody that you reached out to. So the first name of the game, and I do think of this as like playing a game, is when you do your networking, the first thing I do is I hit add opportunity. Okay. And then let's say that you met somebody fabulous, like, I don't know, Amanda Kaufman. Look at that. She's already in your CRM. So that's super helpful. But let's say it wasn't Amanda Kaufman. It was Amanda Kaufman's with a S. And so what I like to do is I come back from my networking event or I get off the phone from a referral or a text exchange. You can do this online or offline. We cool on that? It doesn't matter, right? But the first thing I do is I add that opportunity. The first thing I do after adding that opportunity is I add the contact. And then what's cool about that is it's one motion. So if you already have the contact in your CRM, as you saw, it popped up. If you don't, it's one single motion to make sure you capture their email, their phone number, and everything else. Something I like to do is on the opportunity name, I like leaving the contact name as the name of the opportunity, but I'll add more details. Like maybe it's like a ghostwriting thing. Maybe you were networking and she showed an interest in ghostwriting. I might even place a value on that. So let's say it was like a $5,000 opportunity and you've simply identified it. Now, if you're like me and you like to go networking and connecting with people, but you also have a very early bedtime, what I like to do is I like to do this first thing in the morning the next day, or if I can from the parking lot. Like I try to do this as quickly as possible. And one of the cool things about Clairvenue OS is you can actually access it from your phone. So you can add contacts, you can add opportunities while you're on the go. Okay, so then we're going to assign you as the owner. And the status is really the key thing here because these statuses can trigger automation. So I'll show you the automations in a second, but just really quick on the statuses. For the longest time, I used to pitch and pray. Do you know what pitch and praying is, Sean?
I can guess.
Yeah, so I would meet somebody, I'd think they're fabulous, and I would be like, oh my God, I could totally do great work for you. And then it would be kind of awkward because I would be forcing the relationship when they're way early in their buying process. So when I'm selling, my big thing is I won't pitch unless there's a problem. And it's got to be a problem I'm good at solving. So it can't be some like just a generalized problem. It needs to be something specific. So if you're talking to somebody, you think they're totally fabulous, but they haven't actually mentioned the idea of writing a book yet. You might identify them as a lead, but your first job is to first find out if they even find value in the writing process, in wanting to produce a book, right? So when a conversation is open, I mark it as exactly that, open. And so if we have a conversation and I say, nope, I'm not going to write a book. Or, you know what? That is a plan I have for 2030 and it's 2026. Then we might mark that as lost because we pitched the idea and it was early in the relationship. So we've got all these stages of the relationship, new lead, contacted, intro book. If very early on they're like, no, thank you, then we've lost the deal. And what we want to do is actually mark that we've lost the deal. And there's a difference between losing and abandoning. So winning the deal means, oh my gosh, yes, Sean, I want to join your membership. Or yes, Sean, I want to sign up for your coaching program. Abandon. This is a really important status. This is when you decide not to pursue. So if you decide not to pursue, what I like to do is I like to make a little note on the opportunity as to the reason I'm not pursuing that. It could be a personality conflict. It could be, Sean, I really want to write a book, but I want to make it, the next Harry Potter series and go fiction. And it's like, cool, that's not my core competency, but I can refer you out. You might choose to abandon for a lot of reasons. But we want to lose. We don't want to abandon as much as possible. So what I mean by that is it's better to invite people forward in the process than it is to forget to follow up, which is the reason we're putting this system in place. And then of course you can mark it as one. So for now, I'm going to go open. I'm going to hit create. Huzzah. So now we have this opportunity and look, it opened up a bunch more features. So those notes, right? Wants to write the next Harry Potter. I might just leave a sentence to really integrate for myself. But my whole goal in having systems is to not remember stuff. I hate remembering stuff. Remembering is exhausting. So I'm just going to remember to write it. That's it. I remember the process. I don't remember necessarily every little detail of what I did because I got to use my nice juicy brain for writing the next Harry Potter or whatever it is that's important. Okay. So here's the really key thing. Tasks. Okay. So let's say that you've loaded a bunch of contacts and you got a bunch of new leads. My next step in the process is going to be to contact. Okay. So I'm going to move them from new lead to contacted. And so what I do is I click on the name of the contact, and what it does is it brings you directly to the contact record. And this is where I'm going to call or I'm going to text, I'm going to email, and it's an invitation. I want to send an invitation. So when we do this, you can directly reach out to that person and you can complete the task. Now, if you're like me, you might have a chaotic environment where you are needing to pick up and put down your computer and all of that. Sean, is that true for you?
Hmm. Often.
Okay, cool. So, what I did is I built some automations for you. Here's what they are. So, the first one is the contacted follow up task. So, it's triggered by when somebody moves to the contacted stage. So, when someone moves to the contacted stage, it waits just 5 minutes. And then after that, it's going to add a task to your to dos so that you remember to do a follow up in 3 days. So it's set up through the automation to remind you in 3 days to reach out at 9 a.m. Do you want to change that or does that work?
That works. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to hit publish on this. I'm going to hit save, and we're going to go back to the opportunities. And so we reached out to Amanda Kaufman's, and now we're going to move her to contacted. And then in 5 minutes, it's going to pop a task. So next time you sit down, you can either go to the pipeline and go directly to the Amanda Kaufman's opportunity and give an update, or under contacts, there's this field up here called tasks. And this is where, when I'm sitting down after putting my computer down, I will follow up to do these tasks. I see. Looks like we have some tasks. So I'm curious, do you have any notifications set up for your tasks? Are you getting reminded?
No, it's only if I pop open the OS.
Okay. So looks like we've got a couple overdue, and that's totally okay. Here's how I would clear this queue is I would actually reverse the due date, and I would, looks like you turned this off after a while. That's okay. I would just make sure that you've got the most recent at the top and the oldest at the bottom. And then that's how I would work through it. Now, if you've already done all the follow up, you can simply check it off here, like so. So when you started doing these tasks on your own, what was your original design?
So I basically had this was me just like adding people to a list of folks I would be interested in working with. So these are not necessarily people I've actually connected with yet. And I came up with a list of action items to like start that relationship and start like building the connection. And so that's what each of these steps are. So it's like commenting on their stuff, sending DM an invitation, and there's like a specific order to them, like obviously not to like go immediately into a pitch, right? But to like try to warm them up a little bit first.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I notice you've got a lot of tasks piled up per person. So I'm guessing you had an automation set up to assign the tasks in the future so you would remember.
Yes.
Okay. And how'd that work out for you?
I clearly did not end up doing them because I kept finding like these are primarily through LinkedIn, and like people vary wildly by like how much they're actually active on LinkedIn, right? Like some of these people are very active, so it's very easy to comment on their stuff. Some of them aren't. Some of them like it can take months for them to even accept a request, right? Which is normal. But I got caught up on like trying to follow the same flow with every single one of them, which I think just made it that was me overcomplicating it.
Well, and yeah, I mean that's okay. So one thing that has helped me a lot with designing my follow-up system is making the discernment between a lead and a target. So what you designed was for top of funnel people that you're targeting, that you're hoping will become a lead. But until they respond to you, until they opt in, they're not really a lead yet. They're just someone that you hope to be able to work with. Does that make sense? So when it comes to manual interventions, I might send friend requests, like send 10 friend requests a day, or I might send invitations or build a list of targets just the way that you did. But instead of tracking it as an individual, what I would do is I would treat those top of funnel marketing activities more systemically, where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this batch outreach, and everybody who's on this list is going to get this outreach in this block of time. The next block of time is going to be commenting. Okay, so I'm going to reach out to this list of people in this block of time to do my comments and maybe do it that way. But I think that's also probably one of the less efficient ways to market. A more efficient way to market would be to come up with a attractive initial hooking message that is going to pull people towards you so that you can actually build more of a relationship because they opted into it. Okay, so the pipeline that we've been talking about, I think that's best for somebody who has opted in or that you've got that connection with. And now we're moving into more of a one-on-one sales flow. So you have permission to delete all those other tasks because we're going to make the distinction going forward of like, this is a marketing thingy versus this is a sales thingy. And so have we talked about the difference between marketing and sales behavior much?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, well, let's refresh. So
Yeah.
sales is the art of the one-on-one conversation and connection. That's sales, right? Marketing is the art of the one-to-many conversation. That's how I think about it. What do you think about it?
Pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay, great. So when we're building our week, what we can do is we can block out time on the calendar and say, this is my marketing effort. So it could be outreach, it could be direct outreach, it could be door knocking, it could be flyers, it could be a million other things. I'm so curious, Sean, like what is your favorite medium for one-to-many communication?
I mean, these days it's Substack because it's really built for long form, in depth content, specifically written content. And the culture of it is very different from most other platforms. Like LinkedIn would probably be my second closest in terms of like kind of vibe. But even LinkedIn, right, is a lot more B2B focused, a lot more like professional in the traditional sense. Not that I'm not being professional on Substack, but in Substack, I can more easily blend the memoir and the lesson together in one place.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, okay, so your marketing activity, how many hours a week are you spending on that?
On Substack in particular, I mean, at this point, probably good 10 hours in terms of engaging on other people's Substacks, writing my own article, posting, getting it ready and all that, and then going live. I've been
How
going
many
live every Friday
one-to-one
on there too.
relationships are you generating per week with Substack?
I mean, how do we define one-to-one relationship?
Well, that's a great question. This is somebody that you're maybe having a direct message with. You're speaking more like privately. It's not part of the public conversation, so it's not a conversation in the comments. It's probably something over DM or a phone call or a text.
In that case, about one a week so far, which I've only really been on there seriously for about a month. So that is definitely I could be doing more, right? I could optimize that better, but yeah, I'm starting some real relationships over there.
I love it. Okay, so what I'm seeing is you have a solid middle of the funnel. So think of it kind of like this. Instead of thinking like a linear funnel, which has been taught for a bajillion years, where it's like first they see opt in, direct response, then they are regaled by your crazy clickbaity offer. Then they upsell, downsell, da 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 da, and like you're laughing. So tell me a little
Yes.
bit about that.
I mean, that is how I was taught, right? And that is the world I came up through. And in fact, part of my mission now is to not fall all the way back into that. There are things from that world that are useful, but I don't want to add to the noise, right? Like the whole point of this is to like get people to tell stories with substance. So I feel like if I'm going to be not just in line with my own ethics, but also speaking to the people who actually want to do that, I can't be bludgeoning people to death with clickbait, right? Like that doesn't fit. It's going to feel like oil and water.
I hear you. And all marriages start with a wink. So what I mean by that is that you're right. There probably is like a mix. And looking at your current schedule, generating one lead for 10 hours of work is like a beast ton of work. And when that happens, usually it's because we're not hooking people at the beginning. So instead of thinking of it as this linear all the way through thing, What if we thought of it kind of like a big vortex, like a tornado? And so, like the Wizard of Oz and how Dorothy gets swept away to Oz in her house in the tornado, right? So
Yeah.
think of it kind of like at the very, very top, widest part of the funnel. That's where we're going to catch attention. So when you're redrawing your week, if we were to take out a couple of hours to think, what are the hookiest things about book writing? You could share facts, you could share quotes, you could share stats, you could share social proof, you could share all kinds of things. You could share about your writing process, but like little ideas that catch attention, have high entertainment value, or there's some controversy attached to them. But here's the big thing, not thinky. Okay. We got to speak to the zombie brain because when we're hooking, we're usually hooking somebody in a moment of boredom. So they're not using the prefrontal cortex of their brain. They're tired, right? They're resigned. They might even be stressed. So content that actually meets them there, but then it pulls into where you have a lot of strength, which is this middle content. So middle content is designed to be more sit down content, the long form. This very video is part of my middle content strategy. So what we're doing at the top of this vortex, it is a funnel, but think of it more like it's the three-dimensional thing that people can kind of bebop around like shrapnel inside of a tornado. That's more like what it is actually like. So if your system does not have a top of funnel strategy, then that's going to be a thing we build soon. The middle is going to be that long form consumable content where a deeper relationship is being established. This is where people are considering, do I really like this guy? Is what he's talking, do I agree with what he's talking about? Is he sparking something in me? And do I believe him? Like that's what the middle is really about. The bottom of the funnel, that's the hot spot, right? That's the part where we're inviting into a commitment. And one of the things about this tornado that's a little different now than I would say 10 years ago is 10 years ago, you could take that bottom of the funnel and be like, well, blammo, here's an offer. And it's so cheap to get traffic. People would be basically, the novelty of it was really high. So then the curiosity would like pull them through. But the thing is that people are more discerning than they once were, right? They understand better those mechanisms. So it's not that you don't have the mechanism. So like the opt into the membership, for example, it's that the placement of that mechanism really, really matters. So I call this pitch placement. Right? If you place it at a point in the journey where people know, like, and trust you and have had a chance to see you, even if it's at the end of every Substack article that you write is a link to join the membership or to subscribe. That's okay because it's on the back of you offering value and entertainment, right? So when it comes to the system part, what I would generally recommend for most people is we want to build that tornado as quickly as possible, and you start at the bottom. So right now, the way people funnel into your tornado is by getting to know you personally with one-on-one connection. And that leads to a lot of hustle. It's also going to be the most effective way to get people into your funnel forever and ever, no matter what happens next. The
Right.
next thing is we need to have those opt-in opportunities to give them a chance to experience you from a distance. So what is a free thingy that you could offer a person that would help them with the very next painful part of writing their book?
It's funny. I have something that I suspect is still a little too middle funnel, even though I've gotten very positive response from people who already know me. You can see
There
the
you
problem
go.
there.
Okay. And what is it?
It's my custom GPT that helps people figure out, like, is first off, what book should they write? Is now the right time to write it? And like what kind of book? So the thing is that
I
takes
love
30 to
that.
60 minutes. Yeah.
That's probably a good low ticket, $7, gated item.
Hmm.
And one thing that I notice works best is what is the one particular problem? So that GPT sounds great. It sounds like it's solving three different things that are
Hmm.
important to solve. So what if there was like one thing you could very easily solve for somebody, what would that one thing probably be that they would say, "Thank you. Gosh darn, this has been a real pain in my butt."
This is honestly why I tend to default to like the upper middle of the funnel is that part I know very well. The immediate itch or well, sorry, let me go back to like my first ever ghostwriting client because we were talking about at one point and you said it was a burning need to get the book written. Like, and I also knew, well, he tried doing it on his own at first and very quickly realized like, right, this is not my skill set. So
So he learned that the process was different than he imagined to get the book out.
yeah,
What if you solved
just
that?
getting it onto the page is a lot different than people think.
What if you solved the part where people can actually see? Like, what if you had a resource, like a PDF, ideally a PDF to test, that was basically like, how come it's hard to get the book out, right? Three
Mm,
strategies to finally start writing your memoir. Three strategies to pull your legacy stories. Do you think you could do something like that?
yes, yeah. I actually have an idea I was kicking around today that would dovetail into that perfectly.
That's a really good higher in the funnel lead capture idea because you're meeting people where they really are. Now, this thing that we've been talking about doing a PDF, it's a good thing to put onto your website. It's a great thing to have on the links of your YouTube videos and whenever you get a chance to do a speech or something like that, you can showcase this. It's a low barrier to connecting with you in a deeper way. Low barrier. That's the idea. Low barrier. If it's too heady, if it's too intellectual, or if it's trying to solve too many problems all at the same time, it triggers what I call worky brain. And I'm super guilty of this one in my own business because I'm a nerd and I geek out and I love all this stuff and it's really exciting. It's the reason I'm doing this segment. And the thing is that I'm really into it. But if what I'm producing creates more work, then it's going to go way
Yeah.
down in people's priorities versus easy street, right? And it's not that the person you're trying to attract is lazy. It's the part of the mind that's engaged at that moment in consuming social media. We all have tired moments. We all have emotional moments. So the idea is to meet them in that moment and then we bridge into the medium content, the middle of funnel content. Make sense?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that
Okay.
what you're saying about them not being lazy, like the the distinction I want to tease out is that everyone I bump into that is working on a book, they actually are working on it. The issue is not the lack of intention or effort. More often than not, it's they have hit a snag in the thought process, in their notes, right? Whatever they're doing. And that's actually the thing that I could help them dismantle right away.
So here's the growth right, work, right? The homework is
Yeah.
instead of thinking I have to have the perfect lead magnet, what if you created your next 10? Because now we have AI. There's not a good reason that you cannot produce a relatively templated answer to each of those questions. So, for example, picking your next story. Another one could be banishing writer's block forever. Another one could be finally finishing your book, right? You could take every one of those angles of where they get stuck in the process. And I love that because you're meeting them at that moment of frustration and you're solving it. And then your middle content is really addressing what I call the list of yeah buts. So, if at the bottom of the funnel, what qualifies people to be in your membership is that they want to work on their book, yeah,
Mhm.
that they want something that's legacy forming, right?
Yep.
Your middle content would then need to be addressing their yeah buts. Yeah, but I don't have time to write. Great. You need an article about finding the time to write. Yeah, but my stories are so boring. You have content about how to write engaging stories, right? What to do if you find your story boring. Yeah, but no one's going to want to publish this. 6 ways to get your book published and how to choose between them. Yeah, but I don't know if I need to pay an editor. And then you have a position on all of these, I'm guessing, yeah?
I do.
That's all your middle content. It's just dealing with yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. Okay. So when it comes to this membership, we were talking the other day and I was like, okay, how much is it? And you were like, and you were struggling a little bit with the price. And so can I show you something that's kind of cool about the system? Okay. When you go to payments, you can create a product, and I'm going to create a product with you. What's this membership called?
That's the other thing I'm trying to figure out.
Can I give you a formula?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So great formula for naming is the topic, and you could say academy, blueprint, the membership. You can call it anything that you want. So the writers, what?
It's like the word that's stuck in my head. I don't want to use it, but because I'm not really a martial arts guy and I don't want to claim that, but dojo, like something along those lines of like, this is a place where you intentionally show up and train.
Okay. I love it. The author's dojo. That's
It's not
fantastic.
going to be dojo. We'll
And
change it
so
later,
we're going to
but
pick a
it's
price.
fine for now.
That's the whole thing, Sean, is like so much of most of what I do for people is help them make a decision in the moment. And I do have people change their mind on the decision. But the thing that stops you the most from enrollment is usually overthinking it. So if we just write down dojo, and that's what we mean right now, that's okay because it's digital. We can literally hit backspace 4
I'm going to
times
change it
and replace
immediately
it.
after this call. You have no idea. But point
I'm
taken.
sure you will. I'm sure you will. And congratulations on your accountability to doing it. So, how much is the dojo?
97 a month.
Fantastic. Monthly, I would say when you're starting, and especially somebody who has had as much marketing education as you, resist the temptation to make it complex. Because complexity, like adding a trial or having a discount or things like that, it introduces factors in the buying decision that we have no baseline for yet. So you might decide that you want to have like a founder's launch, and maybe for the founder's launch you're going to go with a lower price and the final price is 97. Cool, but you don't want to do too many bells and whistles, crazy things too early in the process because you're going to introduce factors and it'll be really hard to isolate what's not working unless you keep it very, very simple and crazy basic. Okay. All right. So we've got the price. Look at this. Check this out. There's a thing called a payment link. Boop, create the new payment link. I'm just going to grab that product right there. I'm going to go ahead and require the customer to add a phone number and their address. I might even allow coupon codes. And then I'm going to retitle this. This is the Authors Dojo founding member. Okay, great. Awesome. And I'm going to hit save. Great. Now you can copy this link. You can text it to anybody to come and join your dojo or whatever it's going to be called. You could call it the Writer's Gym. You can call it anything you want. Okay. So one of the cool things in your system is we do have this feature called memberships. 3 pieces to the membership I do recommend. The first is your client portal. So we can add a domain to your system. Let's see here. Looks like you already have seanmabry.com. Fantastic. So what we can do is we can add another domain for the client portal. I'm going to hit connect and you can add the custom domain. So I always recommend something simple like log in seanmabry.com and then add that domain. Now, when you go through this process, it'll send you the details to actually connect it. that's the first part, is we want to connect that portal. So I'll leave you to do it with your particular domain provider. And there's ways to purchase your domain if you need one through the system if you're watching this. Okay. The second piece I would suggest you have is actually the course product. And so what I would do here is I would create a new course from scratch, and it takes you through this amazing wizard. Okay. This is where you're going to put your initial curriculum, which I would not build in advance. I would do this after you've made a couple of sales and you've got commitment from people that they do actually want this. Then I would sit down and do this. Okay. So we can create the course really. Okay. So the authors, is it still a dojo at the time of this writing?
In my time of writing, yes.
Okay, great. So, and you can edit any of these things. Welcome to the author's dojo. Okay. In terms of a thumbnail, all I do is I go to Canva and I do a presentation sized canvas, and I might use a template to begin with and then change it. Or you can go to ChatGPT and use a quick prompt to generate a, a course thumbnail that matches the aesthetic for your brand, right? So I'll let you do that. And then here's something that I like to do. I like to do a version of the offer that is simply access and it's free. And the reason I do this is because I want to be able to add people that might be my beta testers without charging if I want to. And if there's ever like an issue with the subscription, it's nice to be able to grant or take away access. Cool. So now it creates the course. And this is the second part. So this is where you're going to put your course recordings. Look at this confetti. You've got it all set up. And it even gives you the initial content for the experience of your peeps. I would always go to the settings area and make sure that you add your instructor details and things like that so that you've got that beautiful course. The last piece of the membership is called groups within communities. And this is where you would actually put the dojo. So let's call this the author's dojo. Look at that group URL, nice and easy peasy. You'll put the group description and add your images, and then we create the group. So what's really neat about this, I'm going to turn off discovery for now because I like to build it before I release it. And again, you don't have to build this until you make the sales. Cool? Okie dokie. So we created the dojo, and then the first thing it's asking me to do is create a new password. So I'm going to just do that really quick. This is over on a different screen. Let me share that. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and complete my profile. Got to upload my gorgeous headshot. Heyo, there we go. Hi. Okay. So now we're inside your community that did not exist previously. Isn't this fun? Okay. And now you can go to settings and you can do fun things like you can make it private. I do recommend that. I'm going to uncheck allowing members to invite new members. The mandatory profile modal, I do recommend because it forces your users to upload a picture and it increases their engagement, even if it also increases their resentment sometimes because that's one more administrative step, but it really does improve the quality of the connection in the community. I don't usually do the subscriptions and newsletter details and all of that, but you can have like a newsletter frequency, which basically summarizes all the posts and all that. Branding is crazy fun because you can add your cover image and your logo. You can also pick beautiful themes, right? So maybe you like more of a green or a purple and things like that. And of course, it looks different in the dark. So yeah, I love using groups and communities to connect people with whatever it is that you're wanting to lead them through. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just keep that private. Save, confirm. All right. So last piece I want to build for you real quick or show you where we build is going to be the automations attached to all of this. So you've got the membership. In the community, we had created that beautiful course. So if you go to learning, you can add the course directly into it. So this is how you add all of your recordings and resources for the community. And then you can facilitate the discussion here. Okay. So the last piece is connecting the purchase to the community. So if we go back here, you'll see in the OS, we have the automations area. What I like to do is I like to have a folder. I like to call it fulfillment or delivery, whatever works for you. And then I put the product name because I'm probably going to have a few automations related to this. When I create the workflow, I like to start from scratch. You can use AI if you'd like to. The first thing I always do is name my workflow because I always forget if I don't do it at first. Fulfillment, purchases, the author's dojo. Okay. So the trigger is going to be a purchase. So when an order is submitted, we're going to add filters. When the global product is the author's dojo, that's our trigger. The other trigger I always add here is a tag trigger. And so on a contact record, I can add a tag. So let me just show you. I might go action, grant, author, dojo as a tag. And again, it gives me the ability to grant access. So then I'm going to go, all right, add contact tag, member of author dojo. Perfect. And then maybe I might grant group access. And then maybe I might do a notification to you. So let's say we do like an email from, and then we're going to pick you as the user. Amazing. So very important on this step to make sure you put a really fun emoji. Anywhere that I can put a little bit of dopamine for being excited that something happened. Yay! And then I'm going to put the custom value of the contact's full name and their email. And here's a pro tip. I always put the link right there in my notifications so that it's really easy for me to do my follow-on task without having to think about it. Right? And then I might send an email from you to them, welcoming them to the community. You can send a text message, and I do recommend it. When you're all done with the automation, you hit publish. So Sean, how'd we do today?
Good.
Very
That
good.
was good.
What
Excited to rename this
did
thing
you
and
love?
properly launch it.
Just rename it, yeah, because it's all basically
Yeah.
there. We just need to update with a couple of thumbnails, and you'll have the recording that you can reference back to for those particular steps. So what are you excited to do next?
Well, more so than renaming it is actually start sharing it and promoting it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Very cool. So today, just to recap, we updated your sales tasks so that you're only putting your energy and attention towards usually like the higher ticket or people that are close to joining your membership. We're not putting the top of the vortex tasks in the day-to-day, because then you end up with an overwhelming list of hundreds of things as opposed to a manageable list of like 20 or so, right? Cool. There's always more to do, but now you've got the pieces that you can actually make the sale, and you can actually just share the payment link very directly with somebody, which allows you to transact. So what do you think about that?
I think the most valuable part is you have a way of asking the hard question in a way that doesn't feel that hard. Like it feels gentle, but you are asking the hard question. I think that's the best way to put it.
I love that. I love that. So today, what was the hardest question, do you think?
I think the hardest question was like, what was I doing with that list of tasks? Because you actually diagnosed it really well. I was front loading top of funnel stuff, which I do think we should have a little bit more of a conversation about like what exactly to do there. But in terms of finding the immediate value, this makes so much more sense, right? And even in terms of like the daily my daily task list should be 20 things instead of hundreds, and those should be
Exactly.
middle of funnel, moving people along, or even end of funnel, right? Versus trying to generate my own vortex on my own.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Anybody would be overwhelmed with more than 20 things to do in a given day for sure. And so the more that we can like reconcile and pull it into more manageable chunks. And then as for the top of the funnel, I do want to make sure we actually address that. And I know we're going over a little bit, but is it okay if we do? Because I want to make sure
Sure.
you walk out of here with like a really good closed loop. Okay. So I used to over engineer top of funnel so badly. Like I just used to really overthink this so much. So your growth work is to pay attention to who are you paying attention to online and notice like what did they do that paused you? What did they do that stopped your scroll? And then what we do is we repackage that and we apply it to our expertise. So I'll give you a really good example. When I did this research and I looked at some of the influencers that I really enjoy following, I noticed that their middle content was usually hosted as long form YouTube videos or long written posts like on Substack or LinkedIn. For feeds like Facebook feeds, Instagram feeds, and LinkedIn feeds, I noticed that they were quippy. They were almost like Twitter. So what are the punchy sentences that are very hooky? Those are the things we put on the feeds. So when you're sitting down to do your work product and you're thinking about like the 10 hours of marketing that you've got per week, I would love for you to spend 2 hours, no kidding, making lots of little sentences. So another thing that can really help is think about the emotions that your person is probably experiencing. So some good ones
You
might
mean
be
guilt?
frustration, guilt, shame, right? And what are some things that we might say that can assuage the guilt or to address the shame? Because then what happens is then people start experiencing the opposite emotions. So for example, they might get some hope. They might get some encouragement. They might get some, right? So I think that you can definitely go dark side of the force with marketing and you can exploit people's negativity and stoke that fire, but knowing you, I don't think that that's really a good strategy for you. Instead, offering hope or optimism and not feeling like you have to have every piece of content do the entire job. With top of funnel, it really is small experiences and notable poignant moments, and then peppered in there invitations to watch the longer video, invitations to check out the latest of the articles that you've done. I have an idea actually based on your Substacks.
Mhm.
I've noticed in
Go
Facebook
on.
you do make an announcement about
Mhm.
it in general. Tell me about that
Yeah.
process.
So it's not that well thought out, I'll be honest. It's literally just me grabbing like one of the cool things with Substack is it generates those little graphics for you. And actually have a bunch of different options to choose from. They're really nice. But you can create a little image card to drop on other platforms. And the reason why I do it that way is that Facebook and LinkedIn, basically every other platform punishes sharing links. So at least for the people that like know me well enough to want my Substack, they at least know a new one is up, even if they're not already subscribed, so that they can go and find it that way. And that's actually something I have borrowed from a few different people I follow who do the same thing, where when they drop a new Substack, they just drop the graphic and maybe some extra commentary, and then they trust you to go look up the Substack and find it because otherwise no one's going to see it.
I love that. Yeah. So a verbal invitation to go and do it is actually quite effective. And so that's already working for you. So when you're thinking about the top of funnel, instead of thinking like I have to do something different or I have to create something from scratch, how could you do that but like 5 times more? And then when you do sit down to do a story, for example, or you're making like a face to camera thing, you can say the
Hmm.
same thing But because you're saying it in a different format, it's going to give you some more lift. So instead of relying on one post to tell everybody about your Substack, you could maybe commit to doing it 3 to 5 times a week to go with it. And the other thing is a lot of these social platforms, they allow scheduling. So to keep yourself from going, woohoo, you could export the content and then have it scheduled Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if your normal release date is Monday, right?
Yeah.
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 Cool.
So you're saying, just to make sure I'm hearing her correctly, you're saying like use like pull quotes, riffs, like basically, which that I can do very easily. Is like once I've got the article written, pull quotes, duh. But even like, because invariably the minute I finish writing it, I'm like, oh, there's an idea. I could do like 5 different variations of it easily. Like,
Exactly.
so
Okay,
essentially,
but those 5 variations are great top of funnel content. Because the
mm,
hard thing about top of funnel is actually the volume and the frequency. So if through your
yeah,
long form process, you're identifying additional angles or additional things that you would have gone into, but they had to end up on the cutting room floor because you needed to preserve the integrity of the long form, grab those little pieces and throw them into very short form little pieces, right? And you might just find that other ideas kind of expand out of that. But our goal with top of funnel is to create a lot of volume so that you can see when I do pieces like this is top 10% performing stuff. It is a lot faster and easier to master top of funnel when you commit to producing high volume because that 10%, you start seeing the bottom 10% and the top 10% of your top of funnel short form type content. You see the stratification way faster, the more volume you can produce. So I think like the thing that gets in the way the most for smart patooties, as I call a lot of the people that I work with, you're brilliant, but you're overthinking it. You know, my one of my posts that's doing great right now is essentially saying like, "Hey, hard to sell something if no one knows you exist." Such a short little quip, but you see how it elicited a response in you?
yeah,
Yeah, I've made a post like that many, many, many times because every time I do, I notice it elicits a response, right? So that was something I identified as a top 10 performing idea. Now, do I use the exact same words every single time? No. You know, I change up the phrasing. I change up whether I have a photo attached to it or not. I change up whether even if it's video versus a still. So with top of funnel content, you really can go to town with the exact same idea, sentence or phrase, but then replicate it a whole bunch of different times and ways.
yeah, yeah. That
Does
makes
that
sense
answer
too,
your
especially
question around
because
the top?
it does, it does. Well, and I'm still my ears are still buzzing about the testing different lead magnets, right? Which those and it's funny because I've heard a lot of people poo poo the idea of using PDFs. That's part of why I went and built a custom GPT instead. Is like, oh, it's more customized. But actually, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I'm coming back around to the idea that like a very short targeted PDF is probably better actually in a lot of ways.
I agree.
Because
I
that's the
mean,
thing.
if you
I
would,
don't
okay,
want to
you
create.
want to get nerd? We're going to go nerd.
Yeah.
So what if you didn't even build anything? You simply said, I figured out how to XYZ and I've pulled together my steps. Drop this word if you want it.
Mm,
So then
yeah.
when you put that out there, one of two things is going to happen. Your audience is going to say, "Heck yeah," and they're going to drop that keyword and then you're like, "Oh, I guess I better take 20 minutes and actually produce this thing." Or more likely, they will ignore it. And if they ignore it, then you don't need to produce
You know,
diddly
make
do.
it.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the real advantage it gives you, Sean, is that your competitive edge comes from the speed of the testing as opposed to feeling like you have to have it the answer. Because what I've noticed with a lot of entrepreneurs is they will say with very strong conviction, here's the answer to the thing. And one of my greatest growths as an entrepreneur is realizing I don't know. I don't know the future. I don't know your market. I don't know what's going to be the thing that really works. And from working with very successful entrepreneurs who have, repeatedly built 7 and 8 figure businesses, what I've noticed is they have no attachment to what works. They're like, if it works, it works. If it stops working, I'll change it. And I will continue to test against what works. But if I find something that works better than the thing that I'm doing right now, I'm going to drop that other thing. Like, forget about it. Don't even worry about it, because I'm more focused on finding the thing that works. So they do a lot more testing. They operate very lean, and I've noticed some of them are just like straight up ugly brands. Like they're not aesthetic. They're not trying to preserve some kind of a reputation. And I mean, I think the biggest thing, and especially with this top of funnel and pushing your visibility, if you are starting to piss some people off because you are doing things in a manner they would not prefer, great. That means you're doing it right, right? Magnetism, there's two poles to it, right? Like there's the people that pull towards and there's the people that push away. And the louder you get, the better. So if we can really increase how frequently we're pushing that content out there to get a reaction, and here's the worst thing that's going to happen. Let's say you commit and you're like, I'm going to release 100 pieces of content a week, which a lot of people are like, oh no, pearl clutch time. Like I can't do 100 pieces. Yes, you can, right? 25 pieces across 4 channels: Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Done. Right? 25, okay.
Well, in a sense, I
25 is
already
basically
have
7
with
posts
each
a
article.
day times 7 posts a day is 21, right? No, wait, that's
Mm.
for 3 days. 7 posts a day. Damn, that's like way more than you need. 3 posts a day gets you 21 posts a week. Thank you, brain. And then by the time you put it across 4 different channels, you end up with very close to 100. Very close to 100. So people really overthink what they could be accomplishing and doing, and they get intimidated out of it, and they'd rather sound smart than be smart. And the smart thing is to test it and find out what actually works.
I'm so
I can
jazzed on
tell I
the
got your
idea of like
gears going.
repurposing the article. Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah,
funny because
but the
like
core
I put
article, keep it.
yeah, of course. Well, that's what I'm saying is that I've already done the work, right? That, like it's all in there. Like each article easily has like 100 pieces of content in it in some form. So yeah,
Exactly, and just saying you could train Claude to have the skill of producing
that's
at
what I was
least the
thinking.
first draft of a lot of these things.
Yeah,
So then you've got
which
the
I don't care about.
authenticity of
I'm
what
fine.
it is
See,
in your mind in the long form, and then the
that's what the bots are for.
replication is in service of your marketing strategy and systemization.
Right. Love that. Cool.
How's that loop doing? Did we close it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, dear listener, I hope you found this to be a useful demo and conversation. Sean, I can't thank you enough. I will encourage people to go towards the author's dojo, or what you end up ultimately naming it. Make sure
Where it
you
ends
tell
up
me
being
so that
called.
we can put it in the show notes, okay? All right. Thank you, my friend. We'll see you again soon.
Awesome.